She was invited to the CEO's Thanksgiving, but when she saw the empty chair, he said, "It was always for you." Everyone thought that empty chair was for someone who didn't show up. But when the CEO crossed the room, stopped beside her, and said, "That chair was never for the one who didn't come. It was always for you," the entire room stopped breathing. In that moment, Marina Ellington, the quiet assistant no one ever really noticed, realized her past wasn't buried. It was about to be exposed by someone she swore she'd never see again. Before we continue, if you enjoy touching and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now, let's get back to the story. She's just the assistant, right? Surely that chair isn't for her. The whisper wasn't meant to carry across the oak-paneled dining room, but it did. And Marina heard every word. She stood near the French doors that opened to a fire-lit veranda. Her coat still draped over one arm, her clutch pressed close to her waist like a shield. The golden chandelier above sparkled against polished glasses and heirloom china. Soft jazz floated through the air. A room full of laughter, old money, and power. And then there was her, Marina Ellington. 38, quiet, efficient, practically invisible, except tonight. Tonight, she stood inside Adrian Locke's house. No, mansion. And not because of a misplaced calendar invite or a delivery. She'd been personally invited to the most exclusive Thanksgiving dinner in the company's orbit, by the CEO himself. And everyone noticed. "Did she lose a bet?" someone muttered near the wine table. Marina straightened her posture, letting her caramel-colored coat slide from her shoulders and into her arms. She caught her reflection in a side mirror, the olive-green dress, subtle satin gleam catching the light. Her loose waves pinned delicately at one side. She didn't look out of place, not quite, but she felt it. Across the room, a long dining table stretched in front of a grand fireplace. Every chair filled, except one, the one at the far end, set with antique silverware, the finest crystal. A single gold napkin folded differently than the rest. That was the chair, whispers curled like smoke. Maybe his sister couldn't come. I heard it was for his late fiancé. No, she wasn't invited this year. Marina took a breath, steadying the swirl in her chest. That was the thing about humiliation. It wasn't always loud. Sometimes it bloomed in quiet rooms, beneath expensive lighting, dressed as curiosity. Then a voice, low, calm, unmistakable, rose behind her. "You're right on time." She turned. Adrian Locke stood in the entryway, one hand in the pocket of his tailored trousers, the other holding a steaming mug. The most powerful man she knew, calm, unreadable, elegant in his navy sweater and white shirt. His gray-blue eyes locked onto hers, softened slightly, and then he smiled. But not like the press photos or company keynotes. This smile was real, devastating, disarming. "That chair," he said, gesturing gently toward the end of the table. "It's not waiting for someone who didn't show up. It was always for you." The room fell still. Cutlery paused mid-air. Conversations trailed into silence. Even the fire seemed to hush. Marina's lips parted, but no sound came. Her throat tightened, not from embarrassment, from something deeper, something ancient, as if she'd been waiting years to be seen like this. And now that she didn't know how to breathe. Adrian stepped closer, holding out the mug. "Chai, with a touch of cinnamon." I remembered. She accepted it with both hands, fingers brushing his. Warmth surged up her arms, confusing and comforting all at once. "Why?" she whispered, barely audible. His gaze lingered. "Because dignity isn't earned through volume, Marina. It's revealed in silence, and I've watched you hold more than your share." Before she could answer, before she could even feel her knees again, a laugh burst from somewhere near the fireplace. "Oh, come on," said a sharp voice, light and musical with just a touch of venom. "That's a bit theatrical, even for you, Adrian." Heads turned. So did Marina, Celeste Wren, corporate VP, impossibly beautiful, impossibly composed. The kind of woman who could command a room just by existing, and she knew it. Celeste stood from her seat, champagne flute in hand. "I didn't realize we were staging fairy tales tonight." Adrian didn't flinch, but Marina felt the weight shift in the room again. Celeste's eyes, cat-like and cool, flicked toward Marina's dress. "Olive? Interesting choice." Marina smiled, polite but unreadable. "It's my favorite color." Celeste tilted her head. "Of course it is." Another awkward silence. Then a child's voice, loud, clear, and utterly unfiltered, piped up from the table's middle. "Grandma says green makes people jealous." A ripple of laughter broke the tension. Even Marina chuckled. Adrian grinned, folding his arms. "Remind me to promote that kid." More laughter. Even Celeste smirked. And just like that, the spell broke. Tension loosened, forks clinked, and conversation resumed. Adrian gestured toward the empty seat again. "Come, you've earned more than a place at this table." With every step toward the chair, Marina felt years peel off her shoulders. Years of being overlooked, underestimated, passed by. She sat. The chair fit her perfectly. Across the table, someone poured her wine. Another offered sweet potatoes. The man beside her, a retired editor named Harold, asked gently, "So, are you the girl he wrote about?" She blinked. "Wrote?" Harold nodded. "Last year's letter, the Thanksgiving one he sent the board. He mentioned a woman. Said she reminded him what integrity looked like when the rest of us forgot." Marina felt her heart climb into her throat. She didn't know what to say. Across the table, Adrian raised his glass. His eyes found hers, to those who never asked to be seen, but deserved to be. And again, everyone turned to look at her. She barely tasted the sip of wine she took, her fingers trembling just slightly against the stem. Her heart pounded, as if it had waited years to be noticed. Then Celeste leaned slightly forward, her tone breezy but her words barbed. "Let's just hope she knows how to use the spotlight she's suddenly under." Adrian looked at her calmly. "Celeste, I think you'll find Marina's known how to carry the weight of others' silence for a long time. The spotlight's finally catching up." And Marina, who had spent most of her adult life fading into the background, realized something quietly stunning. This night wasn't an accident. It was the beginning. As the turkey was carved and conversation softened, Marina felt a tap on her shoulder. A discreet waiter handed her a folded card with her name in Adrian's handwriting. Inside, only 5 words. "You were never invisible, A." But beneath the card was a photo. A photo no one else was supposed to have. A photo that could ruin everything. The music had softened into something old and slow, Ella Fitzgerald maybe. But Marina barely heard it. The folded card trembled slightly in her fingers. "You were never invisible." It should have been the kind of message that melted her from the inside out, the kind she'd secretly dreamed of hearing from him for months. Years, if she was being honest. But beneath it, the photo, one single photo, glossy. Folded once in the corner, a printout. Someone had gone out of their way to make it look casual, but it wasn't casual. It was her. Her and a man from years ago. A man she hadn't seen since the week everything fell apart. Her posture stiff, his hand on her waist, and that cursed necklace around her neck, the same one she had thrown in the river. She hadn't seen this image in over a decade. She never even knew someone had taken it. And now it was here. At Adrian's Thanksgiving table, her pulse kicked up, fast and hot behind her ribs. "Everything all right?" asked Harold, the retired editor beside her, his voice kind but perceptive. She folded the card quickly, tucking it into her clutch along with the photo. "Just beautiful words, unexpected," he smiled. "He does that, keeps things under his sleeve." Marina didn't respond. Because she couldn't stop asking herself one question: who put that photo there? And why now? She glanced up. Across the table, Celeste Wren was laughing softly at something the CFO said. Her champagne glass tilted, her fingers perfectly manicured. She looked stunning, untouchable, but just for a second. Her eyes flicked toward Marina. There was the faintest curve in her mouth, not a smile, a calculation, and Marina knew. This wasn't a mistake, it was a warning. "Would you like to step outside?" Adrian's voice was quiet, appearing behind her like he'd read her mind. She turned, startled. "Now?" He nodded once. "It's warm on the veranda. Might help." Whatever that was. Her heart sank. Did he know about the photo? She followed him anyway, past the murmurs and laughter, past the oil paintings and glittering chandeliers, out to the quiet stone balcony overlooking a golden garden dusted with late autumn leaves. The air was crisp, but Adrian's presence beside her made it feel safe. He handed her a glass of cider this time, hot, mulled, spiced. A small, thoughtful gesture, a soft moment inside a hard one. She took a sip, grateful for something to hold. "Thank you for inviting me," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "It means more than you think." He didn't look at her at first. He just watched the lights in the trees. "Actually, I think I know exactly how much it means." Silence stretched, comfortable, heavy. Then he turned toward her. "Do you know why I really invited you tonight?" Marina blinked. "Not entirely." He hesitated. Just a beat. Then, "Because someone tried to make you look small this week, and I wanted to remind them, and you, that you're not." Her chest tightened. "Was it about the mistake with the donor account?" she asked, cautious. He shook his head. "That wasn't your mistake, and you know it." She looked away. Well, Celeste seemed eager to suggest otherwise. Adrian sighed through his nose. "Celeste has a sharp memory and a sharper mouth, but I don't let her steer the ship." Then softer, "I trust you, even when others don't." She turned back to him, and for the first time in hours, the panic in her chest softened. His eyes were steady, warm beneath the steel. There was something deeper there, not flirtation, not pity, something older, earned. And yet the photo burned in her clutch like a secret trying to escape. "I need to tell you something," she said suddenly. Adrian's eyes didn't waver. "Then tell me." But before she could answer, a voice interrupted from inside. "Adrian, dessert's being served," Celeste called, opening the door with the kind of timing that didn't feel accidental. He gave Marina a look, an apologetic one, then gently touched her elbow. "Let's finish this later," she nodded, pulse still racing. But in her mind, that photo still sat like a ghost she hadn't buried deep enough. Back at the table, conversation turned sweeter. Literally, pumpkin pie, cinnamon tartlets. A silver bowl of sugared pecans passed from hand to hand. "Here, dear," said the CFO's wife, pushing a warm slice of apple pie toward Marina. "You look like you could use something sweet." Marina smiled, and this time, it was genuine, a micro-victory, a breath, a reminder that not every corner of the room was watching her with knives. Across the table, a little girl asked, "Why are there 2 forks for dessert?" Her grandfather leaned down and whispered, "In case you want to share." And without thinking, Marina lifted her second fork and nudged her plate slightly toward Adrian. He smiled, just a little, and accepted the gesture. Another breath. But just as the table's laughter grew again, Marina's phone buzzed. A text, unknown number. "You always thought the past wouldn't follow you. Guess again. See." Her stomach dropped. She turned to Adrian, ready to ask, to tell him everything. But before she could open her mouth, Celeste raised her voice for all to hear. "Marina, dear, would you mind telling us where you were in 2013? I think I saw a very curious photo of you recently." The table quieted again, forks paused, eyes turned, and Marina couldn't move. Adrian stood. "Celeste, a word." His voice wasn't loud, but it sliced through the tension like ice. She blinked. "Adrian." He didn't repeat himself. The room watched as the CEO calmly walked to the other end of the table and held out his hand toward Celeste. Expression unreadable, and Marina realized with a chill. He already knew about the photo. "Celeste, a word." The words were calm, but the weight behind them was iron. Adrian Locke didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. When he stood from the head of the table, the entire room fell still, as if even the candles dared not flicker. Celeste held her smile, elegant as ever. But Marina, who had learned to read subtle tremors in people, noticed the way Celeste's fingers slipped slightly on her wine glass, just for a second. A crack in the mask. She rose slowly, deliberately. "Of course, darling. Let's clear the air, since you seem so invested." The two of them disappeared through the side doorway near the fireplace, the heavy door clicking shut behind them. Immediately the room buzzed. The CFO leaned toward his wife. The teenager next to the dessert cart whispered something into her phone. Forks slowed mid-bite. Glances darted across the table, but no one said Marina's name aloud. They didn't have to. She stood quietly, placed her napkin on the chair, and slipped out toward the garden doors again, away from the murmurs, the tension, and the photo still burning a hole in her clutch. Outside, the November air wrapped around her like cool silk. The hanging lights strung across the trees swayed gently. The scent of firewood and cinnamon cider lingered. Comforting, almost nostalgic. For a moment, the hush of the garden made it easier to breathe. But nothing silenced the photo in her mind. That man. That version of herself. That past. 2013. The last time she let someone too close. The year everything changed, and everything she worked to rebuild had grown from the ruins of that year. Her fingers brushed the edge of the clutch again, just to feel that the photo was still there, still real. "Are you all right?" The voice didn't belong to Adrian, but to a woman, mature, composed, warm. Marina turned. A tall woman stood just beyond the stone arch, her burgundy dress catching the lantern light. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back into an elegant twist, and she wore a strand of real pearls with the kind of grace only time could polish. "I didn't mean to intrude," Marina said quickly. The woman smiled. "Sometimes stepping away is the wisest thing to do." She held out a hand. "I'm Lydia." "Adrian's aunt," Marina blinked. "Oh, yes, of course. He's mentioned you." Lydia's smile deepened. "All terrible things, I hope." They both chuckled, and for a moment the tension eased. Lydia moved closer, arms folded, gazing out at the softly lit garden. "He's never invited someone like you before." "You know?" Marina stiffened slightly. "Someone like me?" "Someone not from the circle," Lydia clarified gently. "Not born into it, not bought by it." Marina swallowed, unsure of what to say. "Are you all right with that?" she asked finally. Lydia turned her full gaze toward her, calm but serious. "Let me tell you something about this family," she said. "They collect people, power, appearances. But Adrian, he sees people. The real ones. That's always scared the rest of them a little." She paused. "I don't know what just happened in there, and frankly, I'm too old to care about gossip. But if he trusts you, it's for a reason." Marina's eyes stung. From the cold or something deeper? She wasn't sure. She smiled softly. "Thank you." "Good," Lydia said, brushing invisible lint off her sleeve. "Now come inside. You've got half a slice of pie left, and it'd be a shame to let the CFO's wife beat you to it." They laughed again, a breath Marina hadn't even known she was holding. Micro-victory, a gentle ally, a moment of warmth in the cold. Back inside, the air had shifted. Adrian had returned. Celeste had not. As Marina sat back down, the room grew slightly quieter, not unfriendly, just watchful. Dessert plates were being cleared, coffee was being served. Someone had lit the second fireplace. Adrian returned to his seat just as a server placed a small espresso in front of him. Without missing a beat, he motioned to the server, who brought a matching cup to Marina's place, complete with a delicate biscuit and a curl of lemon zest on the saucer. She looked at him. He looked tired, but not unkind. "You didn't deserve that," he said quietly. "I can explain," Marina whispered. "I know," he replied. Then, with a pause, "But not here." He turned slightly, just enough that their conversation was shielded from the rest of the table. "Was it Marcus?" he asked. The name hit like glass. Her breath caught. "How do you know that name?" Adrian didn't blink. "I know a lot of names." A long silence passed between them. Then he reached into his coat pocket and slid something small across the table, barely noticeable, half hidden beneath his hand. A copy of the same photo, folded the same way, same faded corners. Marina stared at it. "You already had it," she said. "I received it anonymously 3 days ago," Adrian said, with no context, no signature, just that. She felt the blood drain from her face. "So you think it's true?" "I think," he said slowly, "that context matters. And I know the kind of woman who sat across from me during every storm this company's faced. I know what loyalty looks like. But others don't," he added, his tone softening, "and they're waiting for this to unravel you." Marina swallowed, her voice trembled. "Then why did you invite me tonight?" He looked her straight in the eyes. "Because I wanted them to see the woman I already believe in." Her breath hitched. "Even if I break everything," she whispered. Adrian's answer was quiet, measured, real. "Then I'll help you rebuild it." But just as the words settled into the space between them, Marina's phone vibrated again. Another text. Same unknown number. "You're not the only one with something to lose. Tell him the truth, or I will." Attached was a second photo, and this time Adrian was in it too. The screen glowed in her palm like a live wire. "You're not the only one with something to lose. Tell him the truth, or I will." Under the message, a photo loaded slowly, too slowly. First came the blur of a hotel lobby. Elegant, old-world decor. Then the unmistakable figure of Adrian Locke, standing near a man in a charcoal suit. And beside them, her, Marina, smiling, shoulders slightly turned toward Marcus, back when she still wore hope like perfume. Her stomach flipped. That was the night, the one that started the unraveling. The night Marcus promised her the world and stole her future instead. Adrian looked over at her, sensing the shift. She turned her phone face down, hand trembling slightly. "I need to step away, just for a minute." He didn't press. "I'll be here." The hallway outside the dining room was dim and hushed, lined with black and white photographs of Locke family weddings and ribbon cuttings. Marina stood against the wall, chest tight, trying to find air that didn't feel like stone. Someone was setting her up, and they had her past in their hands. Not just hers now, Adrian's too. "You're not the only one with something to lose." Whoever sent that knew exactly how to wound. "Marina?" she startled. It was Lydia again, Adrian's aunt, walking slowly with a linen napkin in one hand and a small slice of pecan pie in the other. "I thought you might need a break," Lydia said gently, "and something sweet that isn't coded in tension." Marina let out a tight laugh. "How did you know?" "I've been to enough dinners where people pretend forks can't cut feelings." They sat together on a velvet bench under a grand staircase, sharing the plate with 2 forks and soft laughter. A quiet human moment. A micro-victory in the middle of chaos. After a few bites, Lydia spoke again. "He trusts you, you know." "Adrian." "I don't say that because I think it's romantic. I say it because I know how rare it is." Marina looked at her, eyes tired. "What if he's wrong?" Lydia's smile didn't waver. "Then let him be wrong. but don't hide when you have a voice." Marina nodded slowly. She didn't feel strong yet, but something inside her, small and stubborn, was still standing. She checked her phone again. The message was still there. No new threats, just the weight of the second photo, waiting. Back at the dining table, the mood had shifted slightly. Some guests had left. Others were sipping digestives and trading business war stories like poker hands. A soft jazz record played somewhere in the back, full of scratches and warmth. Adrian was in the corner speaking with his head of operations, but as soon as he saw Marina return, he excused himself immediately. He met her halfway. "You okay?" he asked softly. She nodded. "No, but I will be." He studied her. "You don't owe me anything, Marina. I want you to know that." She hesitated, then looked up at him, choosing the words carefully. "There was someone, a long time ago. He destroyed a part of me I didn't know could break." Adrian's jaw tensed, but he waited. Marina continued, voice low, steady. "His name is Marcus Carr. He used me to get access to a foundation grant, forged documents under my name. I was never charged, but the fallout made sure I'd never work in nonprofits again." Adrian listened without interrupting. "I changed cities, took office jobs. I was just trying to disappear." His voice was quiet. "And then you walked into Lock and Harrow." Marina met his gaze. "I didn't think anyone would remember me. And now someone's making sure no one forgets." He reached into his coat again and showed her his phone. The same message, the same photo. "I got this just now." Her heart sank. "So they're playing both sides. Seems like it." She glanced around. The guests were distracted. Celeste still hadn't returned. "Do you think it's her?" Adrian's voice was even. "She's capable of it, but not alone." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. Who else knew about Marcus? Marina thought hard. One person, my old mentor, a woman named Evelyn Kane. She warned me about him too late. She felt awful afterward, but we lost contact. Adrian looked at her like a chessboard had just moved in his head. "That name came up in a partnership pitch last week." Marina blinked. "What?" "She's consulting for a firm trying to buy one of our affiliates, quietly, but I remember the name because she used to work in philanthropy. I had no idea she was connected to you." Marina's heart thudded. "Then this isn't just about me," she said. "It's about you, about Lock and Harrow," he nodded. "Someone's pulling threads from both ends." Before they could continue, a soft chime rang from the entry hall. Adrian's butler stepped in. "Sir, there's a courier asking for Ms. Ellington." Marina froze. Adrian turned to her. "Did you order something?" "No." They walked to the door together. There, in the open foyer, stood a delivery man with a plain white envelope. He handed it to her without a word. No return address, no stamp. Inside was a single sheet of thick paper. On it, "You were always so easy to fool. Let's see how much Adrian forgives when the final piece drops. Tomorrow morning, check your inbox." No signature. No mercy. Marina's hands trembled. Adrian took the note from her gently, reading it twice. "They want to break you," he said softly, "but they forget you're not made of glass." And then he looked her in the eyes. "Stay with me tonight. Here. We're not giving them a head start." Marina hesitated. Not because she was afraid of the offer, but because it was the first time in years someone had chosen to stand beside her, with nothing to gain and everything to lose. She hadn't planned on staying. In fact, her plan had been to thank him for the invitation, sneak away before dessert, and cry in the back of an Uber like a woman who knew better than to hope for fairy tales. But instead she stood in one of the Locke family guest rooms. Soft lamplight, plush gray bedding, heavy curtains drawn to keep out the cold, while Adrian stood just outside the doorway, waiting for her answer. "It's just for tonight," he said quietly. "No pressure, no expectations. But I'd feel better if I knew you were somewhere safe." She could have said no. Should have, maybe. But instead she said, "I didn't bring anything." He smiled. "My aunt keeps a stash of new pajamas for emergencies. I don't ask why." That made her laugh, and it came out shakier than expected. She didn't realize how much she needed to laugh until it slipped free, a micro-victory. The air softened between them, still charged, but warmer now, less like a storm, more like shared shelter from one. Later, Marina stood in the ensuite bathroom, brushing her fingers over the folded nightshirt left for her. Soft, blue cotton, still in its packaging. She changed out of her dress slowly, her movements careful, respectful. She folded her olive green dress with the same reverence she gave to meaningful things, not because it was expensive, but because it had witnessed something. When she stepped back into the room, Adrian was no longer in the hallway. Instead, there was a tray on the side table. 2 mugs of herbal tea, some buttered toast, and a small dish of honey. Simple, humble, human, and next to it, the photo. Not the printed one, the original. Marina froze. Adrian appeared behind her again, his voice quiet. "I figured, you should be the one to keep it." She looked at him unsure. "You're not that woman anymore," he said, "but you deserve to decide what to do with her." Her throat tightened. She sat slowly on the edge of the bed and reached for one of the mugs. Steam curled upward, chamomile, she guessed. The kind of tea that made you exhale instead of run. Adrian sat across from her in the armchair. His sleeves rolled up, his expression relaxed but unreadable. For a few minutes they sipped in silence. Then she asked softly, "Did Celeste leave?" He nodded. "Not before trying to convince my aunt that you were a PR risk." Marina rolled her eyes. That woman has the subtlety of a wrecking ball. "She's sharp," Adrian said, sipping his tea, "but she never understood the weight of silence. You do." Marina looked down at the photo in her lap again, then folded it once more and slipped it into her bag. "I don't want to run any more," she said, "even if it costs me everything." Adrian leaned forward. "Then we face it together. First thing in the morning, whatever's in your inbox, we'll handle it." She gave a soft laugh. "You say that like you're not risking your reputation to stand beside me." "I am," he said, without flinching, "and it's a risk I'm proud to take." They locked eyes. There was no music playing, no dramatic wind. Just 2 people in borrowed quiet, holding the edge of something that could fall apart, or become the beginning of something real. And that's when Marina's phone lit up again. One new email. Timestamp, 12:01 a.m. Subject line, "The full story," with proof. Her heart dropped. She opened it. Inside was a link, a private folder. 6 documents, 2 photos, 1 voice recording. Adrian moved beside her gently. "Let me see," he said steady. They clicked the audio file first, and as soon as the voice began to speak, deep, smooth, arrogant, Marina felt her blood freeze. "If you're hearing this, then she didn't listen to me." It was Marcus. Alive, unapologetic, and threatening everything. In the background of the recording there was faint music playing. Marina leaned closer. "Wait," she whispered. "That song—" Adrian looked at her. "You recognize it?" She nodded slowly. "It only played at one place. Ever." She turned to him, breath shallow. "The Edenwood Hotel, room 703. That's where it started." Adrian straightened. "Then that's where we end it." The recording ended with a slow fade, music dissolving into static, Marcus's voice trailing into silence like smoke that refused to vanish. Marina stared at the phone. Her hands didn't tremble this time. They were still. Too still. "He knew exactly what he was doing," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He used the music on purpose." Adrian leaned beside her, arms crossed, jaw tight. "That wasn't a message. It was a stage direction." She nodded. "He wants me to go back there, to room 703. He always loved his little dramas. Adrian's gaze softened. "And you always carried the fallout." She looked at him then, properly. No defenses, no polite smiles. Just a quiet kind of weariness that only people who've had to survive their own name can wear. "I don't want to be afraid of that place anymore," she said. "I don't want to flinch when someone asks me what happened." Adrian stood. "Then let's go." She blinked. "Tonight?" "Yes." He grabbed his coat. "Before the story leaks, before someone else tries to tell it for you." She hesitated. "Are you sure?" Adrian looked back. "This isn't about saving you, Marina. This is about walking beside you while you reclaim the parts they tried to erase." It was almost 1 a.m. when they pulled up to the Edenwood Hotel. The building looked exactly the same. Marina hadn't been here in 12 years, but time hadn't touched it. Not the ivy-lined stone arch, not the ornate lanterns glowing above the curved doors. It still smelled faintly of citrus and expensive wood polish, like wealth that didn't apologize. Inside, the night concierge was too polite to question anything when Adrian Locke walked up and asked for discreet access to room 703. They didn't even blink. Moments later, the elevator chimed open, and Marina stepped in beside Adrian, her arms crossed tightly over her coat. She didn't speak as the numbers lit up one by one, but when the doors finally opened, 7th floor, top hallway, patterned carpet, she stopped. It was right there, door 703, closed, silent, but bursting with ghosts. Adrian waited. "You don't have to go in." "I do." Marina stepped forward. Her hand hovered over the keycard the concierge had given her. She inhaled once, deeply, and slid it in. The green light blinked. Click. She pushed the door open slowly, and there it was, the room, cream walls, dark wood trim, velvet armchairs by the window. A small grand piano still stood in the corner, just like before. Even the scent was the same, like old perfume and colder decisions. Adrian stayed by the door while she walked further in, slowly, like her feet remembered something her brain had buried. She reached the minibar, pulled open the drawer beneath it. Empty. Then the closet, also empty. But when she turned to the dresser, the top drawer stuck slightly. Her pulse quickened. She pulled harder, and there, folded in the corner, a single envelope, addressed to her. She looked at Adrian, stunned. He moved beside her as she opened it. Inside were two things. A printed check for $100,000, dated last month, signed by Marcus Carr. He must have come back here recently. A note. "You were always worth more than you asked for. Too bad you never figured that out in time." Marina's hand tightened around the paper. "I'm going to burn it," she said. Adrian didn't stop her. But then she turned the envelope over, and something else slipped out. A key, old, brass, heavy, no label. She stared at it. This wasn't here 12 years ago. Adrian took it, inspecting the number etched faintly on the side. "Unit 9C, that's not a room here," Marina frowned. "Then, where?" Adrian reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. After a few taps, he looked up at her. "There's a warehouse in Midtown registered under C&D Holdings. Unit 9C is on the lease." Her stomach turned. "You think this is where he's keeping the real files?" she asked. Adrian nodded. "Or worse, what he plans to release next." They looked at each other. And for the first time since the night began, Marina didn't feel hunted. She felt angry. "I want to go now." He gave a soft smile. "You're not going alone." Back in the car, Marina curled her hands around a paper cup of coffee from the lobby cafe. Her hair was pulled back now, coat wrapped tightly around her. But her eyes, those soft, expressive eyes, were sharp. Adrian drove with quiet focus, one hand resting on the wheel, the other steady near the console. "Do you regret it?" she asked suddenly. "Regret what?" "Getting involved." He glanced at her. "With the scandal?" "With me." He pulled into the side street near the warehouse and parked. Then turned to her completely. "Marina, I invited you to that Thanksgiving dinner because I wanted to give you your place at the table, but I didn't expect it would turn into a war." She laughed quietly. "Well, we're here now." His gaze softened. "I don't regret anything. I just wish I'd seen you sooner." And there it was. The quiet confession, not dramatic, not theatrical, just true. They approached the warehouse carefully. The building loomed like a sleeping giant, windowless and gray, with a row of industrial doors and a side entrance marked Units 1 to 12. They found 9C easily. Marina slid the key into the lock. It turned, and the door creaked open into dark silence. Adrian pulled out his phone flashlight, lighting the space. Shelves, dozens, stacks of files, cardboard boxes, a safe in the corner, and in the center of the room, a laptop, still open, still on, still recording. Of course, Marcus had set it up like this. He always loved turning traps into performances. A red light blinked, and beside it a note written in Marcus's sharp handwriting. "Since you refuse to disappear, let's see how far you're willing to go to stay." Marina moved closer to the laptop, her face reflected back at her on the screen. The screen flashed once, then a file began uploading automatically to a cloud drive. She gasped. "He's sending it now." Adrian lunged for the power cable. Too late. Upload complete. File sent to CL Renalacajero. Com. Marina stared in horror. Celeste. She wasn't working alone. She was working with Marcus. The screen still glowed with the worst kind of finality. Upload complete. File sent to Cel Renulacajero Camime. Marina backed away from the laptop, her breath catching hard in her throat. Celeste had the file now. Whatever Marcus wanted exposed, whatever twist of the truth he'd curated, was in her hands. And if there was one thing Celeste Wren knew how to do, it was perform with perfect timing. Adrian closed the laptop sharply, as if that could somehow stop what had already begun. Marina leaned against the cold wall. "We're out of time." "Not yet," Adrian said, calmer than she expected. "She may wait till morning. She'll want an audience." Marina scoffed. "Of course she will." But beneath the panic was something new. Not fear, resolve. She straightened. "Then we get ahead of her." Adrian studied her. A new light in her posture, her tone. He hadn't seen her like this before. Not the woman shrinking from her past. The woman walking back toward it with open eyes. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I tell the truth," she said. "All of it, not the version Marcus will leak. Mine." "You want to go public?" "I want it to come from me." Adrian nodded slowly. "You'd have to move fast." "Then help me." He didn't hesitate. Back at Adrian's townhouse, the city still dark outside, they sat at his long oak kitchen table, not the glossy dining room, not the press-ready boardroom table, just wood and warmth and purpose. Adrian pulled out his laptop while Marina brewed a fresh pot of coffee. They moved together in quiet rhythm like people who'd worked beside one another for years. He sliced bread while she poured honey. She typed notes while he formatted bullet points. A strange kind of intimacy. No flirtation, no romance, just shared clarity, just two people planning how to tell the truth. At one point, Marina looked up and caught Adrian watching her. Eyes soft, the ghost of a smile on his lips. "What?" she asked. He looked away briefly, then back. "You have a steadiness when it matters." "It's not loud, but it holds the room," she blinked. "I'm not sure that's how anyone would describe me." "I would?" She looked down at her notes, her cheeks warming in a way she hadn't felt in years. "Well," she said with a small laugh, "good thing you're not everyone." He smiled, amused. "No, I'm definitely not." Their eyes held for a second longer than necessary. A micro-victory, not in strategy, in closeness. At 4:47 a.m., they finalized the plan. Marina would write a public letter, not defensive, not angry, truthful, with context, with dignity. Adrian would have the board review it first, then publish it through the company's press team, before Celeste could make her move. She would take responsibility for the association with Marcus. She'd name what she didn't do and what she did, walk away, rebuild her life, work with quiet integrity. It wasn't a defense, it was a declaration. "You're sure you want to do this?" Adrian asked. "I've hidden long enough." He looked at her like she'd just become the person he'd always hoped she was. "Then let's hit send." They hovered over the button. Marina closed her eyes for a second, whispering a thank you, not to anyone in particular, just to the part of herself that didn't quit. Then she clicked. Sent. They were both too wired to sleep, so Adrian made toast, cinnamon, butter, a pinch of sea salt. "I didn't realize billionaires ate like exhausted interns," Marina said, sipping coffee. He shrugged. "You'd be surprised what happens when your dinner is ruined by blackmail." They shared the toast, laughing softly. Breather moment. Simple food, gentle honesty. Two people choosing peace in the middle of war. Then Marina went quiet again, eyes distant. He noticed. "What is it?" She hesitated. Then, "If this ruins me, don't protect me." "Marina," she held up a hand gently. "I mean it. I want to walk into the fire on my own terms. I don't want to be your pity project." He set his coffee down, walked over, and sat beside her. "You're not a project," he said, voice low. "You're the only one in the room who's not playing a role." She looked at him, her heart suddenly very loud. Adrian reached for something on the counter, the card from the dinner, the one with his handwriting, "You were never invisible." He slid it back to her. "Well, keep it. You'll need it tomorrow." At 7:14 a.m., her inbox pinged. Subject, response, required immediately. It was from Celeste. Marina opened it. There, in icy corporate tone, was a message. "I trust you've seen what Marcus has shared in the interest of corporate transparency and reputational preservation. I expect your resignation before noon, or I will take it public. Cordial regards, Celeste Wren." Marina smiled. She replied with 2 words. "Too late," then forwarded the link to the public letter. It had already been viewed 13,000 times, and climbing. By 9:02 a.m., Marina received another email, this one from a private account. "Evelyn Kane, subject line, I never meant to hurt you." Inside was just one sentence. "There's something you don't know about Marcus, and why I stayed quiet." Silence wasn't loyalty to him. It was survival. And below that, an attachment, a scanned handwritten note, signed MC and dated 1 month before Marina ever met him. The scan loaded slowly. Marina sat at the long kitchen table in Adrian's home, still wearing his aunt's borrowed sweater. Sunlight had just begun bleeding through the windows, warming the corners of the room, but her hands were cold. She read the email again. "There's something you don't know about Marcus, and why I stayed quiet. Evelyn." And then she opened the attachment. It was a photo of a handwritten note, torn from a leather-bound journal. The date in the corner made her chest clench. March 4th, 2011. A full year before she ever met Marcus Carr. The handwriting was familiar. Too familiar. Adrian leaned closer as she read aloud. "If this goes wrong, she'll never know I was watching. I can't be the one to reach her. Not yet. Let Evelyn do it. She'll listen to her. But if Evelyn breaks, everything else does too." MC Marina sat back, stunned. "What does it mean?" Adrian asked. "I don't know," she whispered. He knew about me before we met." "He was watching me." Adrian's jaw tightened. "This wasn't some accidental meeting at that fundraiser, was it?" "No," Marina said, slowly realizing it herself. It was a setup, from the start. She pulled up Evelyn's number, called. No answer. But less than a minute later, a text buzzed. "I'm not ready to speak." "But you deserve to know. You weren't the target. The board was. You were the story he needed to get inside." Marina felt her stomach drop. All this time she thought she'd been naive, foolish, used in some shallow personal betrayal. But it was worse than that. She'd been chosen, used as a bridge to reach people above her, to worm into a boardroom she never set foot in, because he knew she wouldn't suspect it. And she'd carried the shame for over a decade. Later that morning, Marina sat in Adrian's living room while the sun climbed quietly behind the skyline. She cradled a bowl of oatmeal, cinnamon, apples, chopped walnuts, made by his aunt, who popped in without explanation and simply said, "You can't rewrite your past on an empty stomach." Marina had smiled for the first time in hours. A micro-victory. Now she sat curled in the oversized armchair, the oatmeal half finished, the note still open in her lap. Adrian paced slowly, coffee in hand. "He used Evelyn to control the timeline," he said. "She knew you. She was respected in philanthropy. Her silence bought him time." Marina nodded. "She let me think I'd failed on my own. She was probably trying to protect you. She still let me drown." Adrian sat across from her, quiet for a beat. "You know what I think?" he said softly. "You were never the fool in the room. You were the only one telling the truth." That caught her off guard. She looked up. He set his coffee down, leaning forward just slightly. "The truth doesn't always win early, but when it lasts this long, that means it's stronger than the lie." She blinked quickly, nodding. Not because she was fine, but because she wasn't. And he saw it and didn't look away. By noon, her statement had reached nearly 40,000 views. Messages were pouring in, some skeptical, many supportive. One from a senior HR partner read, "You didn't just protect yourself. You reminded every woman in this company why truth still matters." Marina let herself cry for exactly 37 seconds before blowing her nose and making another cup of tea. Adrian returned from a call and set a single, unexpected object on the table. The chair card. The one from Thanksgiving, the one with her name, hand-lettered in gold ink. "I thought it was just a place card," she said, touching the edge with her fingertips. "It was," Adrian replied, "but I wrote it myself." Her brows furrowed. "You did?" He nodded. "And I had a seat saved for you before I sent the invitation." There was a long pause between them. "I didn't expect you to come," he added. "But I hoped." She looked down at the card, then back up at him. "I almost didn't," she whispered. Adrian smiled softly. "I'm glad you did." Their eyes held, a silence not of hesitation, but of recognition. Not everything had to be said aloud. But just as Marina reached for her phone to update her inbox, it vibrated again. Unknown number. No name, no preview. She opened it. "Thought you'd like to know. Celeste is already planning the next headline. You're not the only one with something to hide." Attached. A video. Adrian glanced over, watching her expression change. "What is it?" Marina hesitated, then tapped play. The video was grainy. A parking garage, a man in a dark suit stepping into a black car, and from the passenger side, Celeste Wren. She leaned in toward the driver, then kissed him, long. Familiar. The camera zoomed in. The man? Marcus Carr. Marina stared at the screen. Adrian froze. "That's impossible," he said. "He said they barely knew each other." Marina's voice dropped to a whisper. They weren't just working together. She turned the phone toward him. They were lovers. Adrian's jaw tightened, the realization clicking into place. Marcus needed someone invisible to the board, someone innocent. Celeste could never play that role. And suddenly the scandal wasn't just about the past. It was happening right now. Marina didn't speak right away. She just stared at the video again, the grainy footage looping silently on her phone. Celeste. Marcus. The kiss. The kind of kiss that wasn't a flirtation. It was a reunion, a history, a plan. Adrian stood beside her, arms crossed, brows furrowed in disbelief. She told the board she barely knew him, he said quietly. Marina's voice was cold. She lied, he nodded slowly, and she leaked your past, not to protect the company, but to protect herself. Marina exhaled hard. We're not just fighting whispers anymore. We're fighting people with nothing left to lose. Adrian met her eyes. Then let's give them something to lose. By early afternoon, Marina walked into the Lock and Harrow executive floor with Adrian beside her, not as an assistant, not as someone in the background, but as someone with truth in her hands. The entire atmosphere shifted as she passed. Some nodded, some looked away. One whispered, "She's here," like she was a ghost they thought they buried. But ghosts don't walk in with their head held high. Ghosts don't wear calm like armor. In the boardroom, Celeste was already seated. Perfect posture, perfect suit, perfect smirk. "Well," she said, sipping her espresso, "I suppose you're here to surrender." Marina didn't sit. She reached into her bag and slid the phone across the table. Video paused mid-frame, Celeste's lips inches from Marcus Carr's. Celeste's smile cracked. "Oh," Marina said softly, "not surrender. I came to see what you'd do without your mask." Adrian stood behind her, arms folded. "We know, Celeste. You and Marcus weren't just partners. You were accomplices and lovers." Celeste's jaw clenched, not in denial, but in fury. "Do you have any idea what you're about to ruin?" Marina didn't flinch. "Only your illusion." Celeste stood abruptly. "You think this changes anything? The board won't side with you over me." Adrian stepped forward. "They won't have to." He held up a folder, the results of a private audit his legal team had pulled overnight. There were expense trails, off-record meetings, unapproved access requests, Marcus's name all over Celeste's internal correspondence history. And at the bottom, a letter of pending termination. Celeste's face drained of color. "I trusted you," she hissed at Adrian. "After everything—" "You trusted your power," he said evenly. "That's not the same thing." Celeste turned to Marina, pure venom in her gaze. "You think you've won? You were nothing." "Maybe," Marina said quietly, "but I'm nothing who never lied. And that's more than you can say." Security was discreet, but swift. Celeste was escorted out through the side elevator. Marina didn't watch her go. She just sat down, finally, and let her breath go. Micro-victory. Not because the storm ended, but because she stayed standing through it. Later that evening, Adrian stood in his kitchen again, sleeves rolled up, chopping vegetables like he needed the rhythm to calm his thoughts. "I'm making soup," he said. "It's the only thing that makes sense after betrayal." Marina smiled softly. "You're serious about soup." "Deadly serious." She watched him for a moment. The CEO, the man who commanded rooms. But here, barefoot, onion in hand, talking broth, he looked younger, realer. She took over slicing carrots. "You know, I never saw this version of you at the office." He glanced at her. Maybe I was waiting for the right person to cook with. The words settled into her quietly, not flirtation, not performance, something slower, more honest. They moved around each other in silence. Working in sync, soup simmering, quiet music playing, the city glowing softly through the windows. Then, as they sat with bowls in hand at the breakfast nook, Marina asked gently, "What about you?" Adrian looked up. "What about me?" She tilted her head. "You believed me, trusted me, stood next to me when it would have been easier not to." "Why?" He hesitated, then set the spoon down. "Because I've been there," he said. "Not your story, but one like it." Marina waited. He continued. "Before I took over Lock and Harrow, I was engaged." Her eyes widened. "I didn't know that." "You weren't supposed to," he said with a dry smile. Her name was Grace. "She wanted a family. I wanted the company. We told ourselves we could have both." "What happened?" He stared into his bowl like it held memories instead of broth. "She left 2 weeks before the wedding, said she wouldn't marry a man who didn't know how to be still." Marina said nothing. He looked up. She wasn't wrong. I didn't know how to stop. I built a life that never allowed space for anyone else's pain, until you. She blinked, surprised. Adrian leaned forward. You made me stop. You made me look. Silence. Thick but not uncomfortable. Then Marina whispered, "You were never invisible to me either." They sat in that quiet for a long moment. Two people who'd been abandoned for different reasons. Finally seeing each other, fully, not despite the broken pieces, because of them. But just as Marina reached for another spoonful of soup, her phone buzzed again. Another email. No subject line, just a photo. This one. Different. It was a picture of her. Smiling, laughing, at a garden party she barely remembered, wearing the olive green dress. The photo wasn't threatening. It was beautiful. Underneath it, a message. You don't know who else was watching. Some enemies regret it now. And below that, an address, a bookstore 2 hours away, no sender name. No. Marina showed Adrian the message. He frowned. This doesn't make sense. I think someone's trying to warn me, she said. Or trap you, he countered. She stood anyway. I want to go. Adrian looked at her, long and hard. Then finally said, Then I'm going with you. The car ride was quiet but not tense. Adrian drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting near the gear shift, occasionally brushing his thumb across the leather like he was thinking more than he said. Marina sat beside him, the address pulled up on her phone. Whispering Pines Bookshop, 3:00 p.m. That was all the message had said. The IUM. It felt more like an echo than a threat. Marina didn't know what to expect, just that something had shifted. The war was no longer about exposure, it was about understanding, and she needed that more than she'd realized. The bookstore was nestled in a sleepy village 2 hours outside the city. Ivy clung to the brick, and the doorbell jingled with a soft, sentimental chime when they stepped inside. It smelled like paper, dust, cinnamon, and something faintly nostalgic, like a snow globe that hadn't been shaken in years. They were the only ones there, save for the woman behind the counter, older, in her 60s with short silver hair and a wool shawl. She looked up and smiled faintly. You came, she said, as if it had been a question for years. Marina blinked. Do I know you? The woman stepped forward. Not directly, but I knew your mother. Marina stilled. My mother passed before I was 20. I know, the woman said gently. My name's Therese. I was close with her, back when she worked at the city library. Adrian stayed a respectful distance, quietly watching. Therese gestured toward a small table tucked in a corner, set for two. A tea tray already waiting. Steam curled from the cups. I kept this for you, she said. For the day you were ready. Marina hesitated. Ready for what? They sat. The tea was soft and floral, lemon verbena with hints of honey. A plate of scones rested between them, warm, homemade. A small comfort ritual, humble and healing. Therese reached into her satchel and pulled out a worn envelope. Marina recognized the handwriting immediately, her mother's. Her throat tightened. Therese slid it across the table. Your mother wrote this the week before she passed. She asked me to hold on to it until you were strong enough to understand who you really are. Marina touched the envelope with trembling fingers. It had her name on it, nothing else. She looked up. Why didn't you send it before? Because your mother didn't want it to follow you through your grief. She wanted it to meet you at your strength. Marina carefully opened the envelope. Inside, a single letter, handwritten, faded but clear. My Marina. You were never easy to raise because you felt everything too deeply. You saw truth in silence. You carried shame that wasn't yours. And one day, someone will try to take your voice from you, not by silencing you, but by making you question your worth. Don't let them. You are not your past. You are not what they do to you. You are who you choose to be after. And whoever dares to walk beside you in that storm, they are worthy. The rest are just passing weather. Love always, Mom. Tears filled Marina's eyes before she reached the second paragraph. Adrian reached across the table, hand open but patient. He didn't push. She placed her fingers in his. Not a declaration, not a promise, just an anchor. Something finally safe. After a long moment, Marina looked at Therese. Why now? Therese smiled, tired but proud. Because someone out there tried to make you forget who you were. But you remembered. Marina pressed the letter to her chest. It's strange. I feel like I lost her all over again, and also like she never left. Adrian stood, helping her to her feet. Therese reached into the drawer behind the counter and pulled out a small object wrapped in soft linen. She handed it to Marina. One last thing. Marina unwrapped it slowly. It was a thin gold bracelet, delicate, warm in tone, with a single charm shaped like a quill, a symbol of words, of truth. She whispered, "My mother's." Therese nodded. She wore it every day she worked at the library. Said it reminded her that no story was ever wasted. Marina's breath caught. And suddenly, the symbol had returned. The photo, the letter, the bracelet, all pieces of who she was and still is. Adrian smiled gently. It suits you. She turned the bracelet in her fingers, then quietly fastened it around her wrist. A new story, the beginning of one she chose. Back in the car, the sky had turned golden. Sunlight spilled through the windshield, casting warm lines across their faces. Marina sat quietly, the letter folded neatly in her lap, the bracelet soft against her wrist. Adrian broke the silence first. "Do you believe her now?" "My mother?" He nodded. Marina looked out the window. "I don't think she ever lied to me. I just didn't believe I was worth that kind of truth." "You are," Adrian said. And then, softer, "And you always were." Marina turned to him. Her voice shook, but only slightly. "Are you still standing beside me, even now?" Adrian reached into the glove box and pulled something out. The old place card. Her name, still written in his handwriting. He handed it to her one last time. That chair was never just for dinner. She closed her fingers around it and smiled. Micro-victory. This time, it wasn't small. But just as they reached the edge of the city, her phone rang, a restricted number. She answered cautiously. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was male, confident, cold. "You can tell whatever story you want now, Marina. But I'm not done." Her blood chilled. "Marcus," he laughed. "Still know the sound of my voice? Good." She gripped the phone tighter. "I'm not afraid of you anymore." "No," he said, voice thick with threat. "But you should be, because this time, I'm not coming for your reputation. I'm coming for his. You took from her the only fear that still gave me control, and now you'll pay for it." She looked at Adrian. Then the line went dead. Adrian slowed the car, watching her face carefully. "What is it?" Marina's voice was steady. "He's coming for you now." And Adrian, for once, didn't smile. Because he knew Marcus had one more card to play, and it had Adrian's name written all over it. Marcus's voice still echoed in her mind. This time, "I'm not coming for your reputation. I'm coming for his." Marina sat in Adrian's car in silence, her heart pounding, the bracelet on her wrist warm against her skin, a quiet reminder that she wasn't the girl from 12 years ago. She turned to him. "We have to prepare for whatever he's planning." Adrian gave a single nod, eyes focused, jaw tight. "I've handled scandals, but if he's targeting my name through you—" Marina touched his hand. "Then we face it together. You stood by me. I won't disappear now." There was no hesitation in her voice anymore. She'd earned her strength, not through noise, but through truth. And this time, she wouldn't flinch. The attack came by morning. An anonymous article on a third-rate tabloid site claiming that Adrian Locke had manipulated a former romantic partner, Marina, into hiding a major scandal, using his position to control the narrative and protect his image. Sloppy, baseless, but dangerous. Within an hour, the post had over 10,000 views. Marcus knew exactly how to stir a flame, and more importantly, how to make a good man doubt himself. Adrian stood in the Locke and Harrow press room reading the headline quietly. His team buzzed around him, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he said, "Call a company-wide meeting." "Sir?" his head of comms asked. He turned. "We end this today." The auditorium filled slowly. Then, all at once, press, employees, board members, partners, and Marina, seated quietly in the third row, the gold bracelet glinting softly beneath the sleeve of her coat. Adrian stepped onto the stage. He didn't use a teleprompter, no prepared statement, just his voice and the truth. You've all read the headlines. You've seen the spin, you've heard the whispers. But here's the thing about truth. It doesn't shout, it doesn't rush. It waits. Marina Ellington is not the reason this company is under scrutiny. She's the reason we're standing at all. Murmurs, a few audible gasps. Adrian looked across the crowd, not defiant. Human. Yes, I invited her to my table. Yes, I trust her. And yes, I care for her. Not because I needed her to be quiet, because she reminded me what integrity sounds like. When the room goes silent, eyes turned to Marina, but for the first time, she didn't look down. She looked up steady and smiled. By afternoon, the board released a statement, publicly supporting both Marina and Adrian. The article was discredited. The site removed the post. Marcus Carr's last play failed because it was built on the lie that Marina would shrink again, and she didn't. Micro-victory? No. Final victory. Later that night, Adrian found her in the conference room with the floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights glittering behind her like a sky full of second chances. She was staring down at the Thanksgiving place card, still crisp, still with her name. "Do you still keep it?" he asked. She turned. "It reminds me that someone once saved me a seat I didn't think I deserved." He stepped closer. "You always deserved it. I just had to build a room worthy of you," she smiled. "That's a very poetic way of saying you like me." He grinned. "I do." A pause, then he said, "Marina, I've seen people walk away when things got hard, but you stayed. You faced everything. And somewhere in the middle of that, I stopped wanting anyone else in the room but you." She didn't answer right away. She just stepped closer, then reached into her coat pocket and placed something in his hand. The bracelet. "This belonged to my mother," she said. She said no story was ever wasted. He turned it in his fingers gently. "You're not giving this to me?" "No," she said softly. "I'm trusting you to carry it with me." They stood there, not in a fairy tale, not in a headline, but in something better, a story they chose together. The following week, Thanksgiving came again, only this time. The dinner was different, same long table, same golden plates, but every chair was full. Lydia sat beside the CFO's wife, retelling a story that made everyone laugh. Harold brought 2 pies. A new intern sat beside Marina, nervous, wide-eyed, and starstruck. "I never thought someone like you would even talk to someone like me," she whispered. Marina smiled warmly, placing her hand over the girls. "They used to say the same about me." And at the head of the table, Adrian stood, not to perform, but to raise a glass. "To the ones who walk through fire and come out with their heads high, to those who reclaim their names, to those who were always worth a seat at the table." He looked at Marina, and to the ones who never stopped seeing them. Everyone raised their glass. But Adrian, he didn't drink right away. He just leaned in quietly, bent toward Marina's ear, and whispered, "The chair was always for you. She turned to him. And now? He smiled. Now I don't just want you at the table. I want you in the story, every chapter. And this time, she didn't hesitate. She didn't. She reached into her pocket once more, but this time it wasn't the bracelet. It was a small folded note. Adrian opened it. And inside was the Thanksgiving place card with her name on it. On the back, in her handwriting, 3 words, I say yes. He looked at her, stunned, moved. Yes to... She smiled, eyes full of quiet certainty. To you, to this, to all of it. Then she whispered, Ask me, for real. Adrian stepped back half a pace, pulled something from his coat pocket. A ring, simple and elegant. Marina Ellington, will you marry me? She nodded once. I already have. They didn't kiss loudly. They didn't need music. Just 2 people, standing in truth, not ceremony. 2 months later, under golden afternoon light in the Locke family garden, Marina walked across the lawn in a soft ivory dress, the same bracelet on her wrist. No photographers, no headlines, just family. Lydia cried. Harold brought more pies. The intern gave a speech so nervous it made everyone laugh. And when Adrian said I do, he didn't just mean to her, but to the life they'd built, the storm they'd survived, and the home they'd created in each other. The end. Now I'd love to hear from you. What would you have done if you were Marina? Would you have trusted Adrian or walked away? Comment your answer below. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and rate this story from 0 to 10. You know I'll be reading every word. Until next time, see you in the next story.